So I'm here at IBM in Auckland with John Martin. John, can you introduce yourself to us and tell us what you do?
I'm a senior security architect and a security practice leader on behalf of IBM New Zealand. And I have been involved in information security various aspects for nigh on 32 years now.
Wow, so that's a long time. I guess you've seen a lot of changes in IT security in that time. As things have changed, especially in the last few years with the move to the cloud, that's really changed your job, I'm assuming.
Tremendously, away from a physical type environment, networks, servers residing on the networks itself, people having defined zones of protection, having almost like a fortress type mentality in terms of, yes, it is locked into this building or this particular room and no one else can actually get access to it. Now a lot of that is dissolved very rapidly over the last maybe 5 to 3 years solidly. Now data itself has become a real asset. The value of that was not really realised until the data was no longer locked in its behind 4 walls or 50 foot below the ground in that perspective. So we're definitely moving into a more virtualised environment where the data could reside out of country or it could reside under someone else's control.
I guess, those of us who are cloud evangelists, when the whole sort of hoary chestnut of security concerns get thrown up as a reason to not go to the cloud, we tend to sort of hold up the example of laptops going missing and briefcases with CD-ROMs going missing and those sorts of things. Obviously, at your end of the coalface, you're actually dealing with the hard and fast realities. Obviously, IBM as an organisation is committed to the cloud. Where do you see that continuum line in terms of security risks versus benefits and perceived versus actual risks?
Okay. Before in the physical world, we had about 30, maybe 40 years of experience from knowing exactly what the risk surface is, what the risk environment was. Now we have a situation whereby we're virtualizing the networks and the servers themselves, and it's becoming a lot more complex. So before we felt that the data was residing on this particular server or this particular environment, but now that's been transplanted and dynamically it could be moved without the actual customer or even being shifted from a particular data center or out of the actual country itself. So there is a lot more legislation as long as my arm now coming out, and there's likely to be a lot more of it since the economic downturn from that perspective, which is actually having greater impact on controlling exactly what kind of legal controls or legislation perspectives that the organisation has to deal with. The examples of the payment card industry, credit cards, for instance. You've got from a financial perspective the Basel II regimes from that perspective. You also got Sarbanes-Oxley issues as well, all talking about accountability and putting the correct number of controls in place that you actually are monitoring, analysing, knowing where the data actually resides. And those people you actually hand off that information to or that services to have also got the same level of ethos from a cultural perspective. I will protect that information to the same level that you require me to do it and not actually do the opposite and actually sell it off.
That's what it comes down to, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, you can have all the processors in the world, but if someone takes a DVD disc home in their briefcase and happens to lose it with the financial records of 1.5 million citizens,
yes,
it doesn't matter all the processors in the world. And it's the same thing. It seems to me that I spend all the time looking at software as a service accounting. And it seems a lot of big organisations look for SAS 70 certification,
yes,
and tick that box off. Whereas it's not so much about certification, it's more about business process, the culture necessary to move to the clouds. And so again, there's a tension between what security practitioners would like to happen in terms of certification and compliance, and being a partner to the business and saying this is the way the business needs to work in order to ensure that that security is complied with?
Yes, I think we've come a long way whereby information technology basically drove up to a business to try to, it became an issue where it became rather like a technical babble, if you like, that the business said, oh, it's an IT problem. Now the whole thing has turned around the other way. It's now a business issue. In order for that organisation to stay in business, they have to take control of, like the Companies Act, due diligence, that they must stay financially viable. In order to do that, they must dictate how some of those controls have to be put in place to the IT department, rather than them actually saying, we're going to do it this way. So in relationship to that, organisations, not only the auditors themselves, have come across this situation where they have to think completely afresh in terms of a physical. I can go to a server and I can identify the breakdown of where the data resides on the actual disk itself. Now the auditors identify where in the cloud, or where actually in the network, or in the country, maybe perhaps, or outside the country, that they have to show to themselves either tangibly or intangibly that the prerequisite controls are actually in place. So it's not just about having fixed walls, but in fact having the assurance that the organisation itself, not purely from a SAS 70 perspective or a certification, but you have to prove beyond doubt on a 24/7 basis that you are adhering to those controls that the company's actually signed up for from a contractual perspective, and be able to measure them accurately to actually, and also identify for the company that something has gone awry, but you've dealt with it before it becomes a major issue.
So I guess going forwards as we move more and more into the cloud, it's a case of IT generally and security practitioners specifically actually partnering with C-level, with the C-level of the business, and actually being a critical sort of strategic partner in that process rather than just a service delivery mechanism.
That's right. Absolutely. It has to become a joint partnership from that perspective, because we've definitely seen that in the security world that security practitioners have got to have a business head as well as an IT head, and they almost have to translate between business and IT to business, but they've also got to understand the organisation, its cultural, how it's made up in the environment, and also legislation that surrounds it as well. So we've now seen this move in larger organisations where they have a chief information security officer who works in the same steering committee as the CEO, the CIO, or even the CFO. That's a strategic need from that level. And certainly I believe that IBM has got that maturity, almost 40 years in security, especially in virtualization. Most people don't actually realise we have been doing virtualization for many years. So we have got those skill sets and those processes and features that we can actually share with organisations to ensure their success or continued success.